Okay, good day everyone. Assalamualaikum, especially Ma'am Farah. My name is Giohayra Belongan. And before we begin our discussion, which is the Spanish heritage or the Spanish era, let us first understand what is the Spanish era. Okay, when we say Spanish era, it refers to the time when Spain colonized the Philippines for more than 300 years, from 1565 to 1898. This is one of the longest period of colonization in our history. Okay, during this time, Spain did not only rule the country politically, but also it influenced almost every part of the Filipino life. They introduced new beliefs, systems, traditions, and ways of living. Now, let us begin with the most important legacy of the Spain in the Philippines, which is the Catholicism. Okay, when we say Catholicism, it is the legacy of the Spain in the Philippines when Spanish missionaries arrived during the 6th and 7th century, where they spread the Catholicism and mas lalong lumawak yung religion na Catholic. So they were very dedicated na turuan ng mga Filipino not only about the religion but also to read, writing, the arithmetic, and the music. And because of this, many Filipinos become Christians. In fact, by the end of the 6th century, more than 500,000 na Filipino were already Catholics, and mas naging doble pa ito in the 7th century. And they also built churches such as the San Agustin Church, as you can see in the picture, which is the one of the oldest church in the country or in the Philippines. However, we cannot ignore that there were also negative effects sa pag-influence ng Spain sa atin because some friars or pare abuse their powers and use religion to control the people. Okay, overall, the Catholicism had strong influence on Filipino beliefs, culture, and daily life, and this influence continues up to the present or sa ngayon, no? Now, let's talk about the hospitals and orphanage during the Spanish period. Okay, in 1578, the first hospital in Manila was established. This showed that the Philippines already had system of healthcare a long time ago. So, during the Spanish era, there is a healthcare na or there is a hospitals or orphanage. So, two of the oldest hospital that was still exists today are Juan de Dios Hospital and the San Lazaro Hospital. Aside from the hospital, orphanage were also established, which is first orphanage that na-established here in Philippines, which is the Real Hospicio de San Jose, were founded in 1810 and which still exists pa rin today. Okay, another orphanage, which is the Asylum of Saint Vincent de Paul, were established noong 1858. So, this shows that Spain contributed not only the religion but also the social services, especially sa care for the sick and the poor people or poor Filipino. Understood? Okay, now let's talk about the diet and dress of Filipino during the Spanish period. When we say diet, ito yung foods na na-influence ng Spanish sa atin. And because of the Spain, many new foods were introduced such as the corn, the cabbage, the potatoes, the coffee, and cacao. And also Filipino, natutunan nila to eat bread with drink. No? Isa yan siya sa habit natin. New food items like beef, longganisa, ham, sardinas were also added to the Filipino foods. No? Isa yan siya sa food na na-influence ng Spanish, and one of that is the sardines. No? Isa yan siya sa binibigay kapag ayuda. Okay? So even the way we eat nagche-change din, or how we use spoon, fork, knife, napkin is tinuro din ng Spanish, no, ng mga Spain. Dati we use our hands, but now nakakagamit na tayo ng spoon or ng fork, no? Okay, in terms of clothing naman, there were also big changes. Kapag sa lalaki, they wear coats and trouser, which is known as the Americana. For women naman, they wear saya and kamisa, and they use shawls and hair combs. So we can see that the Spain had a strong influence on both food and clothing of Filipinos, and these influences are still visible or nakikita pa rin natin today. Now, let's understand about the family life during the Spanish period. So, because of the arrival of the Spaniard and Christianity, ang Filipino family, it becomes more organized. Before, di ba, may mga practices na sinasabi kapag maraming asawa, pinapatay, and also kapag mga unwanted babies. So, during the Spanish, na-stop ito, and also the family structure become clearer where kapag tatay means siya yung head ng family, while kapag the mother naman siya yung taga-manage ng bahay and also sa kanyang mga anak. And religious also become very important in this era because family, di ba, one of the center niyan is ang paniniwala or kanilang religion. So for example, family prayed together, no, kapag sama-sama pray, nagro-rosary is doon mas napapahalagahan ang family and also the religion. Okay, until today naman we can still see the respect for parents and also sa mga elders through practices like saying mano po or saying po and opo. So we can say that the Spain had a strong influence on family, Filipino family values and the traditions. Now, let's talk about the conditions of women during the Spanish period. So, during this time, women were respected and valued, but they still had limitation. For example, di ba, they attending social events like mga dances, they needed a chaperone or kumbaga taga-bantay. That's why there limitation pa rin pagdating sa paano nila pahalagahan ang babae. And they were not allowed to interact to the other men is one of the rules during this era kapag sa mga kababaihan. Okay? Young women or usually pinapastay sa bahay or pinapaaral sila sa mga exclusive na school where contain lang siya ng mga babae lang and the teacher is yung mga madre, no? See, parang hindi sila pinapayagan na makipag-interact to the other men. Okay, they all are also not allowed to study universities, to pursue professional like doctors, lawyer, or engineer. Na see, 'di ba? Ano yung pagkakaiba nila anong pagkakaiba ng paano sila nila palaga ng babae kaysa ngayon, no? Tayo ngayon, we are women empower, kung ano yung gusto natin, no? Ano yung freedom natin, okay? But dati, iba naman, no, kung paano nila pahalagahan ang mga babae. Okay? So, 'di ba hindi nila pursue kung ano yung gusto ng mga babae dati, but instead they were trained to become good wives and mothers, no? Iba pa rin talaga ang buhay or era dati kaysa sa era ngayon. Now, let's understand how the calendar introduced or start. During the Spanish period, the Western calendar was introduced. That's why Philippines are same with the calendar of the Europe. However, there was a problem because the Philippines calendar was one day behind sa Europe. So, in 1844, the Governor General Narcisco Claveria, gifix niya yung problem na to where the Tuesday, December 31, 1844 was immediately na change. So, naging January 1, 1845, which is the Wednesday. Okay, see, iniba nila in a one day ang isang calendar because para maka-catch up tayo ng correct time sa other countries. Okay, because of this Philippine calendar, it becomes aligned to the other countries, yun nga sabi ko. Okay, now let's talk about how Filipino got their Spanish surname. Because before, Filipino did not have fixed surname, no? Walang mga apelyido ang mga taon doon, which caused confusion and confusion in identifying their families, kung kaninong family ba to, kaninong anak ba to. And because of this, in 1849, Governor General Claveria, gi-order niya na all Filipino is have the right to choose the surname from a catalog where gisend niya ito sa different provinces or barangays. This where many surname today came from Cruz, Reyes, Santos, no? Parang napapansin natin, no, karamihan yan yung mga apelyido. It because of this pangyayari, and because of this system, identifying people and families, it becomes more organized. That's why the Spanish era, hindi lang siya about the religion, about the food, it because kwan ng tao, no, nung kanyang pagkapangalan, no, is one of the influence din ng Spanish era. Now, let's talk about the language and the alphabet on how the Spanish era influenced that. Okay, Spain introduced the Latin alphabet, which we still use today, yan yung ABCD, and as we can see in the picture. And because of this, the Philippines becomes more connected to the Western world. Okay, some Filipinos, especially the educated ones, mas natututo sila on how to speak Spanish, although most of the lower class naman is hindi masyado nilang alam ano yung mga Spanish word. Okay, today we can still see naman kung ano yung mga Spanish on how it influence kung ano yung language natin. Okay, there are about 5,000 Spanish word in Filipinos. Like example, the mesa, galing yan sa Spanish word, where means ng mesa, the table. Silla means the chair. The oras means the time, and campana or the bell. No, marami pang ibang Spanish words that influence the Filipino language. So interestingly, our native language were not lost, no. Spanish friars, mas nag-study sila ng mga local language like Tagalog, Bisaya, and Ilocano para yung mga tao hindi sila ma-left behind, na even yung Tagalog and Bisaya is still can use pa rin, no? So they even created grammar books and dictionaries which help the people or the Filipino to develop these languages, no? So both Spanish and native language, it influence the Filipino language. Di ba? Napapansin nyo ba? Okay, in education, Spain introduced a formal education system with the levels like the elementary, high school, and the college. No, as we can see, nakikita naman natin, yan yung isa sa influence ng Spanish. And also, ang first teachers dati is the Spanish missionaries, where they also manage the first schools ng mga Pilipino, and also mga wealthy boys study in schools like Colegio de Manila, ito yung Colegio de San Juan de Letran, as you can see in the picture. Yun yung mga wealthy, means mga mayayaman na mga lalaki na nag-aaral, while sa wealthy girls naman, ito yung school nila, which is the Colegio de Santa Isabel. Now, as we can see, diba, iba yung school ng lalaki and babae. Okay, schools were also built in province like Cebu, Iloilo, Albay, and Bacolod. Okay, one of the most important universities is the University of Santo Tomas, were established noong 1611. See, grabe niya ka-old, which is ito yung pinakasabi nga oldest university in the Philippines. Okay, now, let's talk about the printing, books, and newspaper. When we say printing, it is very important because it helps spread knowledge. In 1593, the first printing press in the Philippines was established in Manila by Dominican friars. Okay, the first book naman na na-print was Doctrina Christiana, which used for Catholic teachings. And important figures here is Thomas Pinpin, which is siya yung known as the first Filipino printer and author. Okay, the first newspaper, which is the Superior Gobierno, was na-publish naman siya in 1811. And because of this, ang information, mas lalo siyang faster yung kanyang pag-spread out among the Filipinos. It because of this printer, the printing, the books, and also the newspaper. Understood? Okay, literature during the Spanish era. During the Spanish period, literature in the Philippines was mostly religious in nature. Diba yung Catholicism, where most stories, poems, writings were used to teach people about good and evil. And they often carried strong moral lesson, where religions plays a very important role in shaping early Filipino writings, no? Yan yung unang tinuturo sa Filipino dati or during the Spanish era. And one of the earliest and the most important literary works in Tagalog is the Passion by Gaspar Aquino de Belen in 1704. So this work tells us the story of the life, suffering, death, and resurrection of the Jesus Christ. It became very popular and was widely read during the Holy Week. Binabasa yan especially sa religious gatherings ng mga Christians, no? Okay, aside from the religious texts, there were also awit and mga korido, which are narrative poems that tell story of heroes, adventures, and fantasy. And some popular example niya including the Ibong Adarna, Don Juan Tenorio, Bernardo Carpio. This story were enjoyed by many Filipinos and were passed down through the generation, no? One of the greatest Filipino writers during this time was Francisco Balagtas, known as the Prince of Tagalog Poets, and his masterpiece, which is the Florante at Laura, is a story of love, betrayal, and adventure that reflects both personal emotion and social issues during the Spanish era. Okay, other important writers include si Pedro Bucaneg, where he contributed to Ilocano literature, and father of Anselmo Fajardo, who helped develop the Pampango drama, one of the drama in Spanish era. And in Spanish language literature naman, writers such as the Cecilio Apostol, Fernando Guerrero, and Jose Palma become famous. And Jose Palma also wrote the original lyrics ng Philippine National Anthem, no? Imagine in this era, dito na pala nagsisimula isulat ang Philippine National Anthem. And most importantly, si Dr. Jose Rizal, through his novels, which is the No Limitang Here and the El Filibusterismo, used literature as powerful tool to expose the abuses ng mga Spanish government and para ma-awaken, magising ang Pilipino na tayo ay ginakontrol ng mga Spanish, no? Okay, overall, literature during the Spanish era become a strong way for Filipinos to express their ideas, emotions, and resistance against colonial rule. Theater during the Spanish era, the Spanish colonizer introduced the Western-style theater in the Philippines, where plays were performed sa stage. The first recorded na theatrical performance in the country was held sa Cebu in 1598. And two of the most popular forms of theater during this time were the cenaculo and the moro-moro. Where we say cenaculo is a religious plays that show the life and suffering and death ni Jesus Christ. It is usually performed during Holy Week. Yan yung nakikita natin sa mga video. Okay? It is meant to strengthen the faith of the people. Where on the other hand, the Moro-Moro is a dramatic, adventurous plays that portrays the battles between Christians and Muslim. So in this plays or theater, mas pina-show nila kung sino yung mananalo, which is the Christians always winner, because it reflects the Spanish religions kung paano nila gina-spread out ang Christianity. And through these theatrical performances, Spain was able na spread pa ang Christianity while also introducing entertainment by using dramas or mga theater and mga storytelling on that stage. Music during the Spanish era. Music in the Philippines was greatly enriched during the Spanish period, where many people influenced from Spain, or many Filipinos na influenced from Spain and Europe, and can still be seen in Filipinos music today, including our national anthem, no, is one of the influence of the Spanish, and the Spanish na introduced nila in many Western dances such as the Cariñosa, Pandango, Bihota, no? Isa yan siya sa na-introduce ng Spanish, and European dances like polka waltz, the rigodon is also become popular among Filipinos. Yan yung isa sa mga tradisyon na sinasayaw natin or kapag mga competition sa schools, no? And musical instruments were also introduced including violin, flute, piano, and harp which came from the Europe and the Mexico. Okay, however, traditional Filipino music did not disappear. So mga indigenous instruments like musikong, bumbong, which is uses bamboo instrument, continue nag-exist pa rin and minamahal, ginavalue pa rin ng mga Filipino. And one of the greatest musical contributions of this era is the bamboo organ of Las Piñas Church, were created by Father Diego Serra. It is a unique instrument and one of the few of its kind in the world, no? See, in general Filipino music, it becomes combination ng native tradition and also Spanish influence. See, hindi lang sa religion, hindi lang sa pagkain, hindi lang sa language, but also sa music is na-influence pa rin tayo ng mga Spanish. Now, let's talk about naman the houses and villages during the Spanish era. Okay, during the Spanish period, towns in the Philippines were carefully planned. They followed a rectangular town layout and where the church and central plaza were placed at the center of the community life. The Spanish introduced the concept of pueblo bajo campana, meaning people should live within hearing distance of church bells. Okay, this shows how important the religions was in daily life ng mga Spanish, no? They also introduced stone construction. As we can see in the picture, di ba yan yung uso ng mga bahay dati, leading to the building of churches, forts, and houses made of stone. Okay, one of the most famous example is the San Agustin Church in Intramuros, which remain one of the oldest stone churches in the country. Yan yung sa picture. Okay, wealthy families live in a bahay na bato, a house tiled with stone walls on the ground floor and wooden upper floor naman, red tiles roofs, balconies, and open patches. Okay? So, this shows that Spanish greatly influenced the organization and structure ng Filipino communities. Hindi lang sa iba't iba, but also the houses, villages is na-influencean tayo ni Spanish or ng Spain. Okay, sa art naman, during the Spanish era, Spanish colonization also introduced paintings, sculpture in the Philippines, where early artwork, mostly religious paintings and portraits, yan yung ng mga Spanish officials. And one of the most important figure in Filipino art is si Damian Domingo, known as the father of Filipino painters, and he established the first formal school of painting sa Manila in 1820. And later famous Filipino artists such as si Juan Luna and Felix Resucion Hidalgo gained the international recognition in their works, even won around awards at the Madrid Exposition in 1883. And as we can see, ito yung paintings ni Juan Luna. In sculpture, wood carving become popular, especially in creating religious images of saints, replacing earlier indigenous beliefs, no? Isa yan sa sikat dati or during this era, yung wood carving, no? And a well-known sculptor from this period is si Mariano Madrinan of Pite, Laguna, where siya yung isa sa marunong na magkapag sa woods carving. And overall, during this Spanish era, it become more advanced and internationally recognized na tayo. It because of yung dahil sa music, sa art, or different influence ni Spanish. Okay, Spanish introduced also the modern science in the Philippines. They study local plants, animals, and document them in a scientific books. So they are also trained Filipinos in field such as the medicine, chemistry, pharmacies, and one of the most important scientists was Anacleto del Rosario, known as the Prince of the Filipino Chemists, and he became the first Filipino director of the Manila Laboratory University in 1888. Okay, some other notable scientists were graduates of the University of Santo Tomas, including Dr. Jose Rizal, who also contribute to medical sciences. And this shows that science in the Philippines began to develop during the Spanish period, no? So you can see meron ng mga laboratory sa dito sa Philippines during this era or this period. Okay, the Observatory of Manila was established by Jesuit priests in 1865, and it became important institution for studying weather and natural disaster. Example, earthquake, floods, no? Its main function was to monitor typhoons, earthquake, to warn people and protect communities. Okay, the first director was Father Federico Faura, who created the Fora barometer for weather prediction, as you can see in the picture, and the famous Padre Faura Street in Manila was named after him. So he was succeeded by Father Jose Al who developed the barocyclometer, an improved weather instrument. And because of this contribution, the Manila Observatory became one of the oldest weather center in Asia. Okay, and fiestas and amusement during the Spanish era naman, the Spanish introduced religious fiestas in every town, each dedicated to a patron saint. This celebration it became important cultural events in Filipino communities, and they also introduced the Lenten season, a religious period from Ash Wednesday to a Holy Saturday where people focus on prayer, reflection, religious, and performance like senakulo. And in terms of entertainment naman, Filipino enjoy games and gambling and horse racing. And nagsimula siya noong 1868 in Santa Mesa, Manila. And cockfighting, lotteries also become popular during this era. And traditional celebrations such as Flores de Mayo and Santa Cruzan also na-develop during this time. And common games include patinteros, sipa, kite flying, cards game, especially since there were no television or radios, no? Iba pa rin talaga yung era dati or period or days kesa ngayon na more on nasa television, more on gadgets ang mga tao. And also social classes during the Spanish era, where Spanish society in the Philippines was divided into different social classes, where kapag sinabing peninsulares, ito ay parang nasabi na ito ni ma'am, where kapag sinabing peninsulares were Spaniard na pinanganak in Spain, and it held the highest position in the government. While insulares naman were Spaniard na born in the Philippines, although they were Spanish, but they were still considered lower status than peninsulares. So, mas mataas pa rin si peninsulares. Okay, the term Filipino originally na-referred only to insulares, but later na-evolve siya to include all people born in the Philippines. Kasi dati ang tawag sa atin insulares, no? When we say insulares, yung mga medyo nasa low level, and there were also mestizos of or people of mixed Spanish and Filipino ancestry. Yan yung tinatawag mestizos. And Filipino were often classified as Indios, no? Ito yung mga mahirap was term used for native Filipino during the Spanish rule, no? Despite this era, meron pa rin talagang discrimination, or kumbaga hindi pa rin tayo naka-free, wala pa rin tayong karapatan, no? Despite social inequality, Spanish influence also brought some positive trait such as yung mga strong religions, yun nga yung mga positive niya, yung pagiging religious, devotion, respect for elders. Although may negative like uh, yung pagiging ano nila sa mga pag-control sa mga tao or mga Filipino, and also sa mga kababaihan na wala silang freedom to choose ano yung gusto nila. Okay? So, in historical values of Spanish influence naman, the Spanish left a deep and long-lasting impact on the Philippines, and one of the most important is that the country became a Christian nation, and it remains the only predominantly Christian country sa Asia, itong Philippines. Okay, Christianity helped improve social behavior and ended some harmful practices. Ito yung mga tribal wars, human sacrifice, and polygamy, no? Spanish influence can still be seen in many aspects of Filipino life, including yung food natin, pananamit, educations, language, literature, music, architecture, and also science. In conclusion, in my presentation, many Filipino traditions today were rooted in Spanish colonial influence, making it a major part of our national identity. And it is very strong influence sa ating mga Filipino, because imagine that 300 years, more than years tayong hindi lang pala 300, no, more than years tayong sakop ng Spanish. And we are thankful na ngayon may freedom na tayo. And because by that, mayroon pa rin tayong mga traits na naturo ng Spanish na hindi pa rin natin mabitawan, nagagamit pa rin natin now. Okay? At least we are free. We can choose what we want, no? Okay, that's all. I know thank you for listening. I hope all of you understand my presentation.